Happy marriages can be happier, and shaky marriages can mend. Specific insight and custom codes work. Fix love now. It's the Marriage Code Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Obinna and Belinda Ndu. We are with Covenant Marriage Academy, and we wanted to talk to you guys today. We have a very interesting conversation, actually. I'm sure most of you who are married or been in long-term relationships, you've dealt with this before. Arguments, and we're here to share with you today that the arguments are actually gifts, 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 and so. In fact, wherever you are right now, if you're driving, please keep your hands on the wheel. But for those of you who may not be driving, please, if you could just write this down somewhere. Grab a pen and paper. Here we go. GODISNOWHE. Now, if you caught every letter, if you didn't, you can rewind. But if you caught every letter, here's the deal. I want you to now say to yourself out loud what it is you believe those letters are saying. Now, some of you said God is nowhere. Some of you said God is now here. Here's what I want to say to you, that both of them are in there. If you look at those letters again, you'll see that both sentences are in that one sentence. I bring this up because it's very apropos to the subject we're speaking of today, in that arguments are gifts. I've heard it said, and you probably heard something similar, in that every misfortune carries with it a seed of opportunity. And as cliche as that sounds, it is an absolute fact that every misfortune carries with it a seed of opportunity. And so when we speak to the fact that arguments are gifts, what we're really trying to say is that rather than focusing on the misfortune, wouldn't it be a different type of argument if you went in and with the intention of seeking out the seed of opportunity? Saying things to yourself like, I wonder what this is here to teach me. I wonder what this is here to teach us. As opposed to saying things to yourself like, why does she always? Why does he every time? You see, you go into the argument, quote unquote, with a different perspective when you have this awareness. Here's something that I do know, that we react and respond to things in life based on what we know. And now that it has permeated your consciousness that, hey, the arguments are gifts. The arguments are gifts. You will start to see that they'll show up differently for you. You will start to see that your arguments now won't be an exercise in futility, another gray hair popping out. It won't be some perilous journey for you. It won't be painful, or I should say as much as painful as it used to be, because you have a new perspective. There's a saying that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so your arguments bring you blessings. Your arguments bring you rewards. Your arguments are supposed to bring you closer. These things are supposed to fuse, not confuse. But the challenge with us is because we don't know that, they end up confusing. Because we don't look for the seed of opportunity, they end up causing more pain. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure if you're paying attention to anything that I've shared with you so far, your next thing that shows up for you, is, wow, if that's the case, then how should I go into the argument, right? How should I argue? Well, guess what? My wife's going to share a couple of tips with you on how to do that. So, honey, please, if you don't mind, share with the folks that are listening, just a few things they can do differently now that they know that the arguments are gifts.
Absolutely. Great job, by the way, with getting us started this morning, Jay. That was incredible. So, basically, I just want to share a few things with you guys. And most psychologists, I tell you, anyone that deals with relationship or marriages, we just wish everyone knew that fighting is healthy. Fighting is healthy. Most people think that, okay, if I don't fight, then I'm, we're healthy because we don't fight at all. Oh, no. And every psychologist, anyone that works in marriages or relationship knows that the fights that end your relationships are the ones that go unspoken. You gotta hear me. The fights that end most relationships are the fights that go unspoken. So basically, we just need you to understand that there's always going to be two types of fights. The first one is going to be the one that produces a healthy relationship and one that ends the relationship. So with that being said, the first tip that we want to give you is understanding that any conversation, any argument, any relationship quarrel will never rise above the success of the first 3 minutes. A healthy relationship or a healthy conversation typically begins with a calm demeanor and soft-spoken words within the first 3 minutes. If you have not accomplished that, the conversation is going nowhere. And the second tip I want to give you is that, number one, you want to listen. Fact is that when you go to an argument or you go to have a conversation with your spouse and you're all heated, you know everything you want to say. And that's good. But your job in that conversation, if you want to be healthy, is not to let your spouse download everything you have on your mental Rolodex that you want to say. Because everything's just not going to be said. So be okay with not delivering everything. But your job in the relationship is to know everything they need to say. It should be to listen to your spouse and to allow them to communicate their complaints, their desires in a healthy way. The third thing is remembering that, listen, you may have all of these feelings, you may have all these negative emotions right now. Your spouse may be in a doghouse. You may think that your husband or your wife is the worst person in the world right now, but you have to keep in mind that those feelings that you're feeling right now will dissipate. They will go away. And you've got to remember that there is a time after the fight. There will be a time when you will no longer feel that way. There will be a time when you will think back, you will look back, and you and your spouse will probably laugh about this moment. And you will probably think, what were we mad about again? So keeping in mind that as you argue, keep it healthy. And part of keeping it healthy is always remembering that once we get to the other side of this fight, or the other side of this argument, not only have we grown, we've chosen to grow, but we're now different people than we were before we started.
Wow, Dave, that's awesome. I think those are really three cool bullet points, and I hope everybody caught them. The first one, the conversation won't rise above the temperature of the first 3 minutes. The second one, listen. I think most times people think communication is always about speaking, but the bigger part is listening. And then that last component that you mentioned is so strong. There is always a time after the fight, and it's interesting because I think the most important time to remember that is during the fight.
Right.
So that's a really good point.
Most people forget it.
Yes, exactly. Most people are tempted to forget it when they should remember it the most. So excellent points, my love. I guess to just kind of, close out this topic, this conversation today, I want to share something, a concept that, I've been toying around with lately. I'm sure we've all heard this saying, or maybe not everyone, but most people have, in that sometimes you're the bug and sometimes you're the windshield. And I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, what does that even mean? Right? And you think about it when you're driving on the highway and take a long road trip. Usually when you get there, you got all kinds of, dead insects splattered on the windshield and on the hood of the car. Well, that's what it's referring to. Sometimes you're the thing that's getting splattered, and sometimes you're doing the splattering. Well, we've come up with our own little phrase that's similar to that. And here's what it says. Sometimes you're the seed. Sometimes you're the fertilizer. Sometimes you're the seed. Sometimes you're the fertilizer. I bring that up with this conversation about arguments being gifts because here's one thing I've learned in my marriage. Sometimes it takes multiple conversations at different times addressing the same thing for you guys to finally get past it. And so the reason I bring that up and why that applies to the seed and the fertilizer analogy is because if you don't recognize that, hey, this is one of those seed conversations. This is the first time that my spouse is actually hearing about this thing. No wonder he or she is so upset because they didn't know this before. They didn't know what they didn't know. So that's a seed conversation. But if you are coming to that conversation expecting it to be a fertilizer conversation, in that, man, they should already know this stuff. How come you're doing this? And don't you know that this? No, I didn't. Wow. That changes the tone of the conversation, doesn't it? When you realize that it is a seed conversation when you were expecting it to be a fertilizer conversation. And
Right.
and so the same thing, ladies and gentlemen, applies in the other way, in that, hey, maybe you have talked about something 2 or 3 times and it just seems like your spouse is still not getting it. It may take one more fertilizer conversation in order for the seed to start growing, in order for you to start seeing results from the other conversations. So, ladies and gentlemen, just keep that in mind, that when you're dealing with your spouse, be patient. Be patient. Did I say be patient? I meant to say be patient. It took time for you to get to where you are. It's going to take time for them to get to where you feel like the two of you should be, and vice versa. So
That's a
remember,
great point.
sometimes you're the seed, sometimes you're the fertilizer. Yes, honey, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, that's a great point. It also reminded me of the one of the things that we decided to do in our relationship is recognize that, oh man, here's a fight. We've been praying and we've been working to get to a certain point of our relationship, and we understand that even when you want to accomplish anything in life, whether it's career goals, whether it's academic goals in college and school, or whatever it is in your relationship, the goals always come with trials, tribulations, and a mile marker. That means that if you're not already there, you have to go through something to get to where you're going. And sometimes that just needs a little bit of traffic. And that traffic can show up in disappointment, it can show up in heartbreak, it can show up as a fight in a relationship. And it just simply means that, hey, once you get through that accident, once you get through that particular roadblock, or you take that detour, you're going to get back to the same road that your goal is on. But sometimes, based on how we were raised, based on the information that we had, based on past relationships, we bring tons of baggage to the relationship, and now we expect for our spouses to decipher through our mess. So not realizing that that's causing more damage than anything else. And that's another subject. I won't go there right now. But once we realize that, hey, this is a fight, my husband and I, we now get excited when those challenges come up, because we understand clearly that on the other side of this, we become better people. On the other side of this fight, on the other side of this argument, we're now different than what we were when we first started. True about anything else in life. You've got to go through so that you may grow through that thing. And the challenge is, most people, just like the children of Israel, they decide to wander around for 40 years in the wilderness rather than just letting go of their stuff and getting past their messiness to introduce a new level of humility to their relationship so that they can be on the same page with their partner, and vice versa. So that's basically the thing I wanted to share. Coming up with a principle or creating principles in your relationship based around your fights, based around your arguments, that, okay, on the other side of this, if we made a decision that we're going to be together forever, and we made a decision that, divorce is not an option as long as it's healthy, then we can get past whatever comes our way.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I remember when I was first getting into entrepreneurship, one of my mentors gave a suggestion. He said, set the goal to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for what it will make of you to achieve it. It's not the $1 million. It's the $1 million mindset you must gain in order to have the $1 million. And so I parallel that to this situation in that, hey, when we go into the argument knowing that it's a gift, then that argument is going to make something of us when to come out of it. And that's the gift in it, is that there is something in this that is going to make something better of us. And that's the key that we want to drive home today. And remember, that shows up differently for everybody. And, you might even mess it up in the next argument, but that's okay. Remember it the one after that. But the point is, now that it's in your reality, now that you now have a chance at creating something different, something special. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, if no one has told you, my wife and I, we absolutely love you guys. We will continue to pray for your union. We will continue to ask that blessings be showered, not just on your marriage, but through your marriage, so that God's will can be done in this world. And so we thank you. We bid you adieu, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Marriages need lifelong learning. Visit www.covenantmarriageacademy.com. Learn, see, and grow in marital bliss. We have video help, counseling appointments available, and more. The Ndus have solutions specifically for you. Fix love now.